Gregg, Maya, and Betty are not experts, nor do they claim to be. They're just a bunch of nerds who enjoy talking about movies, shows, and current events. So sit back, grab a coffee, relax, and enjoy a brand new episode of All Queued Up.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of All Queued Up, the review podcast tied to streaming services like Netflix, Amazon Prime, HBO Max, Disney Plus, etc., etc., etc. I'm your host, Gregg, and with me always is Maya Don Fisher and Betty Badger. How are you two doing today?
I'm good. It's a nice Wednesday, and we celebrated Yule this week, and got lots of nice prezzies, one of them being a baby Grogu that moves and makes noises, and I'm very happy about it. So it's just going to be a good week in general. How are you, Maya?
Well, I'm wonderful on this Festivus. There will be an airing of grievances later. For those of you who aren't aware, today is Festivus for the rest of us. And we're recording on Festivus. And tomorrow was Christmas Eve. And then Christmas Day, when this publishes, that's our gift to you guys. But I'm great. Yeah, I'm having a good morning. Expecting some packages, last minute, and there's definitely going to be 3 or 4 that are arriving after Christmas, at least. So I joked with Madison last night. I was like, since some of your packages aren't here yet and they're going to be delivered slowly one by one, I think that we're going to do the 12 days of Christmas and you can open up 1 package per day. And she's like, what? I was like, yeah. So pick your package. And she started picking things up, start shaking them. She's like, well, this one's really light. This one's kind of heavy. I was like, yeah, I think we're going to open them up based on weight, the lightest one to the heaviest one. Let's do it like that. She's like, really? And I was like, no, not really. I was just fucking with her. But it was funny while it lasted. I had her going for about 15 minutes last night.
Did she get to open a present?
No, not yet.
Oh, you're so mean. I've actually done that. So, I mean, because again, we don't celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Yule. Sometimes we've just done it like, a week-long thing. We get a present on each day. We kind of, we got Jewish in us. And so, it kind of goes along with that as well. So, I don't know. It's always...
I told her we were going to start on Christmas Day, opening up 1 a day.
How's she feel about that?
Well, she was like, okay, but no, I always let her open 1 on Christmas Eve evening. But then the rest will be on Christmas Day.
I'm assuming she doesn't believe in Santa Claus anymore.
No, not anymore. Oh, it was so fun when she used to.
Mm-hmm.
Because whatever big thing I got for her, I would always put it together after bed, set it up, and I would have fun doing that.
That's what Jeff and I would do. Yeah, we had a lot of fun. Remember building our fair share of castles and greenhouses and doll houses. So
yeah, exactly. And Gregg would know what we would talk about if he had children of his own, I guess. But you don't know the joy of childhood, sir, or child.
You'll have no crotch droppings.
I don't want to add goddamn population. You kidding me?
Speaking of, how are you doing, man?
I'm good. I've been kind of
just laughing at that.
There was a little bit of stress recently with family stuff, but it seems to have subsided, so we're pretty good. I had a lot of fun with the gift exchange thing we did recently.
Yeah. We were part of a Secret Santa over the weekend. All 3 of us. And we got some nice things.
Yeah, the book that I ended up getting was something I wanted for a long time because it kind of goes through the development history of Shovel Knight and shows some like concept art and whatnot. It's awesome. It's fucking awesome. Shovel Knight being one of my favorite games, by the way. But,
that's awesome.
Yeah, for everybody that's joining us today, we're going to be talking about 3 things. This is going to be probably a longer than normal podcast, just because I feel like all three subjects are going to have a lot to discuss about. But we're going to be talking about the finale of Mandalorian, episode 8, chapter 16, season 2 specifically. Episode
the rescue.
Yep, the rescue. Episode 1 of The Stand on CBS All Access, and the documentary Hillbilly on Hulu. But why don't we go ahead and get started with Mandalorian, since I'm sure, Betty, you have a lot of questions.
I have some, yeah.
We might be able to answer those.
Yeah, there might be some that we're just like, yeah, do we give a synopsis for this episode? I mean, I'm sure everyone's watched it.
Yeah, this episode was action-packed, and it was set up as everybody who's been watching along or watching and then listening to our reactions, or if you haven't been watching, regardless, the build-up for this episode had been coming. The Mandalorian Din Djarin is mounting a rescue to save Baby Yoda, aka Grogu, as his come to be known, from the clutches of Moff Gideon. And to do so, he can't do it by himself. He's enlisted help. He's got the coordinates to the ship, thanks to Miggs Mayfield in the prior episode, played by Bill Burr. And now he and a few friends or allies have formed a rescue party composed of Cara Dune, Shannick Finn, or Fennec Shand. Shannick Finn, wow. Fennec Shand, I totally dyslexiaed there. Boba Fett, Bo-Katan, and Bo-Katan's one of her Mandalorian soldiers, played by Sasha Banks of the WWE. I couldn't think of her character's name off the top of my head.
Yeah.
But it's pretty action-packed, start to finish. A major appearance happens. Basically, this cruiser is filled with a whole platoon of dark troopers, even though there's not a lot of regular troopers on board. But the dark troopers, they have to be pacified. And we see Mando come face to face with one dark trooper. And the thing, it takes some doing. He's able to take it out. But there's a full platoon of them just waiting to get at this boarding party.
Okay, so let's talk about some things we learned in the first part of the episode.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they go and they get control of that scientist, the clone scientist.
Mm-hmm.
After they've got their kit together, we do find out that the dark, what are they?
The dark troopers.
The dark troopers are not human. They are bionic. They got rid of the human, or as much as they could. So that's one thing we found out about that. Another thing with Bo-Katan, we found out what she was looking for, which is...
She's been looking for the Darksaber.
Uh-huh. So want to put that out there so we know when we're walking into the situation before we get to the Mandalorian Dark Trooper fight. These are some of the tidbits that we learned that will be... it will come into play later on in the episode.
Yeah.
So we get on that ship and they completely go their separate ways. They've got their own agendas. We know that Grogu's in the bridge. Of course, that's where Mando's going. And then we get to the epic fight scene Maya was describing about, what was going on there. Because holy shit, that dude took a licking. Let's hear it in your glory, Maya.
Oh, he took quite a licking when he went toe to toe with the dark trooper. He threw a left, he threw a right, he caught a blow to the ribs. He was smashed around about and took a few up the side of the head.
He said, ow, that hurts.
He says, oh, my bollocks.
But what about, okay, so they finish it, he gets away. I thought it was kind of funny. I was like, oh, they're like zombies. You just got to take off the head. And then
he took that Beskar spear and he pierced the central core processor of the thing.
Yeah, so then, you see that whole room full of troopers, and Jeff and I were like, how's this going to go down? And he just blows them out of airlock. And I was like, well, how convenient was that? And I'm like, well, Star Wars.
He
pulled us convenient.
He pulled a Sigourney Weaver right there.
I mean, they just whoosh out into space. I was like, that was really convenient. I mean, why would you put them in a room where they could whoosh out into space?
Because that's also, they can deploy from there. And that's something that, he probably realized that it's only going to buy them time because they are droids, so they can operate in deep space, and they are equipped with jetpacks, as we saw a couple episodes before. They can fly. So, it
I
just
wonder
buys
if that discombobulates them when they're like, wait, this wasn't supposed to happen. What do we do now?
Yeah, I'm sure it took them a few minutes to reassess and, get under control and get back, but it's just buys them just a couple of minutes.
I mean, they were badass. They were really, really badass. I mean, Mando definitely took a licking. I think he was even surprised at how hard it was. Yeah,
my dad cracked me up during that scene because he goes, I'm just like Mando, like the Beskar just takes a hell of a punch, and I'm just like, yeah, I can block a lightsaber. I wasn't that surprised. And he goes, I was like, it was cool. It was awesome. And we know that like even Mando himself can take a hit, even though the Beskar was protecting him because they were still fucking knocking his ass around.
Yeah. I mean, he was getting tossed around like a rag doll.
Yeah.
Well, Greg, let's go to you. What happens next?
After that scene, I'm trying to remember the exact, I know that for me, one of the coolest parts of the episode, and I might be jumping here, I don't remember, but it was the as people were calling it on social media, the woman power moment in the episode.
Oh yeah, it was a force of badass bitches. I loved it.
Yeah, people were pointing out that scene is how you do that kind of thing, and that Marvel needs to take note.
Yeah.
As I don't know if we've discussed it on the podcast before or whatever, but when Marvel, when Avengers Endgame came out, there's a scene where all the female heroes that have existed so far in the MCU kind of like come together at a moment to help. And it seemed very forced. I know that a lot of people are just like, this seems very forced, and like they're just putting it in here so that way, it shows inclusion or whatever.
I thought it was awesome.
I don't disagree, but that's how people felt. But this scene was different than that. This felt natural,
Yeah,
it's also easier to work a 4-woman squad than, like 15 to 20 different women on one battlefield and chaining them all together. This is a 4-woman squad in close quarters in these corridors. So it's a lot easier and feels more natural in that regard. I get that. Yeah.
That's but people had noticed, like there were the people. I saw people saying that they didn't even notice that it was one of those moments in the show until it was happening. They were just kind of like, oh my god, like I didn't even realize that this was a woman power moment because of like it just didn't. It wasn't forced.
Yeah. You weren't expecting it, it's not like something they threw in your face. It was just like, oh, wow, cool.
But it was so much fun to watch. Like,
oh, it was.
Absolutely. Like the whole, like the gun jamming and then not jamming. Oh, so much fun. But,
and they kicked ass.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And then they make their way to the bridge and nobody's there.
Where is Moff Gideon? Maya. I keep wanting
I don't
Mayo,
know.
Miracle Whip.
I don't know there, Lando. Am I Han or am I Han? I mean, what's going on here?
Solo.
So we cut back to the Mandalorian, and he finds Grogu in his little prison cell, and Moff Gideon's standing there with the Darksaber ignited at his throat. And he's like, let's talk. He's like, let's make a deal. He's like, I just want the kid. And he's like, okay, take him. I just wanted his blood. I've gotten his blood. I got what I wanted from him, and with it, I'll restore order to the galaxy, and you're free to go. And he's like, okay. He goes and picks him up, and he starts to walk away, and that's when Gideon double crosses him and swings the Darksaber, and those two get into a fight.
Okay, let's just first off, Baby Grogu looks so sad. He looks so sad. Second of all,
he was tired.
Yeah, he was. He was so tired. Bless his little heart. Second of all, I don't trust that motherfucker Moff Gideon. Okay, I don't give a shit what he said. This ain't going down without a fight, and you ain't gonna come at me from behind. Of course, Mando did win in the end, but why would you even trust him? He's Moff fucking Gideon. Don't trust him.
Well, he just wanted the kid, and he wanted to get the kid out of there. So that's all he was thinking. But yeah, that turned into a fight.
His life.
Yeah. When he disarms Moff Gideon, essentially winning the Darksaber in combat, which comes heavily into play in a few moments. But they once he disarms Moff Gideon, takes him into custody, they make their way to the bridge, and he tells Bo-Katan, he's like, here's the Darksaber. And Moff Gideon's like, oh, she can't take it.
Yeah, he gets all chuckly and shit.
He's like, oh no. He said she can't take it because it has to be won in combat. And in order for her to rule Mandalore, she must win it by force. And he's like, I don't care about that. Here, it's yours. And she's like, no, I can't take it. And she refuses it. So that's setting up something for season 3,
And she is not happy. You can see it in her face. She is not fucking happy.
Oh, she's pissed.
Yeah, she is pissed. And I don't trust her. She's got her own motives. Absolutely. I know. And I didn't trust her the first time we encountered her. And so Greg, would you like to take it from here? And
it's fine. I was going to say, because I can't remember exactly how the episode went, but like in detail to that regard.
Okay, I can take over.
Been damn near a week, but I was just going to point out that I don't think that they've ever mentioned in other Star Wars media the point of the Darksaber. At least they didn't in Clone Wars that she was in.
I think they did in Rebels.
They did in Rebels, okay.
It had been established that whoever inherited the Darksaber was rightful ruler of Mandalore. I don't remember where exactly it was stated, though, but I know that has been established.
Okay. Because I honestly was like, I don't remember if it was or wasn't. But
well, I've not watched all of Clone Wars or Rebels, but I know that's been a thing and it's been said before. I just can't remember the source of where I saw it.
I mean, contextually, it was very clear that the Darksaber meant something in regards to her and Mandalore because of how she was acting towards it before he said that.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and she could have just taken it, but it would have been, in her heart of hearts, she would have been a traitor to the throne. Any other people who thought in that same stupid vein would also see her as a traitor to the throne. So
not so much a traitor as a pretender.
Yeah, pretender. So something bad's going to happen between the two of them, and of course, I don't know what's going to happen, but yeah, that was very. Shit's gonna go down. Bitch is not happy. So
yeah.
And then after that, we know things are about to hit the fan. And then all of a sudden, something comes into the radar. What is it? It's an X-Wing. And it comes in and it docks. And there's a dude in a black cloak that gets out with a green lightsaber. You can't see him, but they're all watching him on security. And you keep looking at Moff Gideon. You can tell in his face, he's like, oh, fuck. I don't want to be here right now. Oh, fuck. Everybody else is like, what? Baby Yoda's on the screen going, oh, touching it and shit. This Jedi's coming through. He's just fucking knocking shit left and right. Finally gets to the fucking bridge and opens. And who is it, Greg?
It is Luke Skywalker himself. So I want to kind of mention a couple things. I think this is really funny to me is that and I'm pretty sure Maya's in the same boat, realized it was Luke very quickly.
Me too. Jeff kept saying, no, it's not. No, it's not. I was like, honey, that's his lightsaber. That is him. When he came in, he had that glove. I was like, that is so Luke Skywalker. And then he took off his hood. I was like, that is an excellent deep fake.
It was funny because I think I said out loud as it happened, as soon as like the X-Wing came into shot, I think I said out loud, I was like, I swear to God, if that's Luke. And then, of course, the scene with him turning on the lightsaber, and I was just like, "Holy shit, it is Luke!"
Mm-hmm.
Admittedly, I wasn't expecting Luke.
Who else is going to be showing up in a fucking X-wing?
It could have been another Jedi entirely.
That's what Jeff was saying. I was like, "Nope, it's Luke. It's
Luke." I wasn't sure it was Luke myself because I thought it could have been Ezra Bridger,
right?
Because he also wielded a green lightsaber. And
it was the green lightsaber and the glove is what give it away from me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was, and the glove. I was like, okay, yeah, that's Luke. But the last time we saw him, he was battling Grand Admiral Thrawn. So I thought there was a possibility it could have been him, but it made the most sense for it to be Luke because Luke, of course, was setting up a Jedi teaching academy around this time. Because this does take 5 years after the last Return of the Jedi. So it made sense for it to be Luke. I was just hoping it would have been Ezra. But I wasn't disappointed at all. I was actually really excited. And I was just like, oh, shit.
Yeah. Part of the complaints that I'm seeing online about Luke being in the scene is that it takes away from the show's specialness of being unique and not part of anything that had to do with the trilogies directly. And I kind of understand that. I'd love a story that doesn't directly involve other characters from other parts of Star Wars. But at the same time, you're going to really look at me in the fucking face and tell me that scene wasn't cool as shit. Like, that's really what you're going to do right now because you are upset that Luke was in the fucking episode. Like,
well, and the way I look at it, Luke's not going to have a part in this. He took Grogu away. We're still going to be following the Mandalorian because it is the Mandalorian, not the child, not Baby Yoda, not Grogu. It is the Mandalorian. Right. The kid will come back once he's been trained. We'll probably see Luke again or somebody else drop his ass off and he'll have been trained.
Yeah, I have a theory as to what will happen in regards to that. I think that next season, maybe the next 2 seasons, we won't see Grogu at all.
No.
I think that the show is going to advance normally, and then we're going to have a situation where either Luke or somebody else is going to show up with Grogu because in the new trilogy, they explained that Luke basically set up a Jedi temple, and then about 3 or 4 years before the events of Force Awakens, Ben Solo went off to be Kylo Ren, and before he took off, he killed, quote unquote, killed everybody at the Jedi Temple and destroyed the Jedi Temple, which caused Luke to go into exile. I believe that much like the situation with Rey, Grogu is going to be dropped off by either Luke or some other force is going to drop off Grogu back with Mando because he knows that Mando can take care of Grogu.
For fuck's sake, for all we know, we might see fucking Princess Leia.
True. I mean,
it'll be hard to do, but
deep faking, man. I mean, they deep fake the shit out of Luke. I mean, they can deep fake the shit out of Carrie Fisher. It would not be hard.
My honest opinion: get Carrie Fisher's daughter and then deep fake her.
Mm-hmm.
That's how you do. That's how you do that. She's literally the exact same size as Carrie Fisher,
with the same facial expressions and stuff. The way she smiles, the way she laughs. Yeah, they could totally. I would love to see her reprise Carrie Fisher as the drop off person. That's all we need is little tiny cameos. That's it. I'm okay with that.
And that's another thing is like I would technically be upset if the show went the route of like just pandering to the audience and saying like, you remember when this thing happened and doing the whole like South Park member berries shit. I'd be upset if that was the case, but that's not the case here. Ahsoka, Boba Fett, and now Luke are intertwined to the plot and makes sense versus just being there as a cameo. So I was totally fucking okay with it.
Also, Monday, rumors are popping up that there's a Luke Skywalker series for Disney Plus in development. It's been reported over quite a few outlets, but nothing definitive yet. That may be something they have in plan, but I know they do have several things planned, and we'll go into that here momentarily.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was a touching moment when Luke shows up, and Mando was like, "Well, this is it, kid. He's here for you."
He took his helmet off.
Yeah. And then he looks at Luke and he's like, he doesn't want to go with you. He's like, he's asking for your permission. So he takes his helmet off and they have a little touching moment, and Grogu looks him in the eyes, and Mando's sitting there and he's got tears in his eyes, and Grogu puts his hand on his cheek, and then he sets him down and hands him off. And
who wasn't crying?
R2. I wasn't.
Oh, shut your face.
I wasn't. I was. My jaw was still on the floor, actually. But Misty was like right behind me, and she had her hands on my back, and I felt tears hitting my shoulder because she was crying.
I was crying, not like sobbing, but I definitely.
Oh yeah, I had the Kleenex, man.
But R2 comes in, and then the three of them depart. And it closes on everybody standing there on the bridge, like, what now?
And I loved how Grogu and R2D2, they seem to understand each other and like each other. I thought that was so cute.
So I don't know if I've ever told you to, but R2 is my favorite Star Wars character.
Aw.
And so that scene, I was just like, yeah, that's cute. I sent both of you a TikTok that has now gone viral about a mom talking to her daughter, and she's just like, she's crying because she saw this finale and it was really sad, and she's having trouble processing it, and it's really funny. The mom goes like, it's through this girl's morning before getting ready for school or whatever they're doing. And
oh yeah.
She's crying in front of her, and she's like, it was emotional, huh? And you can't tell me because you don't want to spoil it. And it cuts to her eating breakfast, and she's still crying.
I know, bless her heart. I felt so bad for her.
Oh, it was so good. I was like, yep, we've all been there, lady. We've all been there, girl. Like, we've been.
But that's not the end of it. Who wants to tell us the little secret after the credits?
I do want to say that if you did not stay, like, I'm glad that Maya messaged me on Friday morning, have you watched the episode? And I said, I'm watching it. And she goes, stay for after the credits. And I was like, oh shit, okay. I'm glad you said something, because I don't know that I would have. And it's kind of crazy how many people didn't.
Oh, I know a lot of people didn't. Like I was, my buddy Sam, that we do Nerd Life Syndicate together on Friday nights. He messaged me. He's like, man, did you watch this morning already? I was like, yeah. What'd you think of that end credit scene? He's like, fuck, there's an end credit scene? Shit, be right back. So yeah, there's an end credit scene, and it shows us Jabba's palace on Tatooine, and you see Bib Fortuna here 5 years later after Return of the Jedi, and he's gained a little bit of weight, and he's sitting on a throne where Jabba traditionally would have been. And Fennec Shand and Boba Fett come in and just kill everybody. He's like, Boba, I thought you were dead. And Boba just puts a blaster in him and then goes and sits down on the throne. And Fennec Shand, is just standing there by his side. And then it fades to black, and it says, coming December 2021, the Book of Boba Fett. So we're getting another series. That wasn't announced on Investor Day, so that was a clever little surprise.
Yeah.
A pleasant surprise. So now we're getting that are set in the same timeline as The Mandalorian. Next year, we're getting Rangers of the New Republic, the Ahsoka show, and the Book of Boba Fett. Now, they've already said that characters will cross over from time to time. And then there's probably going to be like a big crossover / big event type crossover deal. And I think that might be like maybe a retaking of Mandalore. Or maybe even something bigger like Grand Admiral Thrawn come into play.
Yeah.
So I'm really excited about all the possibilities that there are going on. There's just a lot there.
One of the things I thought was fucking awesome, and they didn't show this in the episode itself, but it was talked about on like Disney's social media and whatnot. One of the executive producers of the Book of Boba Fett is
Robert Rodriguez.
Robert Rodriguez. And that excites me greatly.
Oh, yeah. Because I love him as a director, and he was the one that directed the episode on Tython. And I'm just like, all right, this is great. So, yeah. I mean, we got a lot of great content being promised to us, and I'm excited about it. So,
it's going to be good times.
Betty, did you have any specific questions that were lingering after watching this episode that you have not had answered?
No, not really. Again, I think I addressed everything I wanted to throughout the commentary. So, yeah, I think I'm good now.
All right.
Awesome.
Well, let's give our final thoughts and a grade on it, I suppose, on the whole season, though, not just the episode, or you can give episode and season. I didn't, whatever you make the choice. But, Betty, I'd like to hear your thoughts on it, since how you feel about Star Wars as a whole. So,
actually, I give the season an A+ and this episode an A++. I thought it was really well done. I liked the little intricacies that were in it, knowing that these characters all kind of had different motives for doing what they were doing. Finding out about the Darksaber and the fact that she has to win it in combat, well, that's going to be interesting. Jeff thought I would be really upset, I think, when Luke took Grogu away, but I'm okay with it because I know it'll be fine. He's not going to die. I know he'll be fine. He will come back when it's time for him to come back, and he's been able to learn things, so, and I'm not concerned that Luke or any of the rest of that stuff is going to actually interfere with this show. It was just a cameo. They deep faked his ass, for fuck's sake, and it was cute and I appreciate it, but I think that's all it was there for. So I was very pleased overall, and I'm looking forward to next season. What about you, Maya?
Oh, A+ for the episode, A+ for the season. This season blew season 1 out of the water.
I agree.
Season 1 was great, don't get me wrong, but season 2 just built upon what season 1 had established and cranked it up to 11. So to speak, and it left me wanting more. 8 episodes is nice. Anytime anything leaves me wanting more, that's a hallmark of something that I really, really enjoyed. And it sucks that it's over now, and I have to wait a whole year for this again. But hopefully, we'll get a few things in the meantime to tide us over, because we're getting wonderful Star Wars content. A lot of people have been very conflicted and mixed on the last trilogy that was in theaters. I myself, I enjoyed every bit of it, but I can't speak for everyone. A lot of people, it's divisive, but this is something that a lot of people seem to be really, really in agreement upon for the most part, is how well this show has been done. But yeah, I'm excited. I can't wait. What do you think, Greg?
I've said time and time again that a story is as good as the people making it. You can take a bad actor and make them a good actor with a good director. And not only does this show have excellent actors, but it has excellent directors. If you go through each episode and look at who directed the episode, it's insane. Like, I don't know how much money Disney is throwing at this show, but
$8.
What's that?
$8.
Specific. Oh, that's fucking.
Yeah.
A lot of love is clearly. A lot of love, regardless of how much is being spent. It's very clear to me that when. So Marvel has been kind of doing this when it comes to their content, and that's handing off the reins of these shows and movies to people who actually give a shit about Star Wars. When you have a movie or a show that is just being made for the sake of making money, and that somebody has taken the source material and kind of just gone wherever the fuck they want with it, it's very clear that it's not going to come out as well. And Mandalorian is proof that if you give somebody who knows what the fuck they're doing enough resources, they can make something that everyone will love. Now, granted, you still have your like shitty fucking fans and whatnot, and that really sucks because it's going to happen. But it seems like with Mando, Star Wars is at a point where I can have a conversation with anybody about the show, and like even people that are critiquing it on having legacy characters, quote unquote. And by legacy, I mean, not brand new characters, are still like, it's fucking amazing. I still love it. And I think that's a testament to not only Jon Favreau's ability to make something good, but like just his wherewithal to want to make something good versus like he's just in it for that Disney money. So I'm extremely happy that the show is where it is. Star Wars being one of my favorite things in the world. A fucking tattoo, for Christ's sake. And people going
right now, Andy would say, "God, you've got a Star Wars tattoo? Tell me all about it."
The reason I point out the Star Wars tattoo is I've literally permanently put Star Wars on my body. In regards to my love of the franchise.
What do you have?
It's a yin yang, like but the dots inside the black and the white are Rebel and Empire.
Oh.
As a 37-year-old, I clearly see the silliness in that. But when I was 25, it was the dopest shit ever. But,
and what's funny, 12 years later, he still treats it like it is.
I mean, it is. It's fucking cool, Maya.
I'm just giving you a hard time because it was funny because the other night you mentioned it and Andy was like, "Oh, shit, you got a Star Wars tattoo? Really? Oh, my God. Tell us all about it, Greg." And, because he was being facetious in that manner. And I just thought it was funny as hell.
Well, that I think the reason I mention it at all is because a lot of people have this stigma that I only have a Star Wars tattoo because I am one of those toxic fans, and I'm not. So I have to clarify that, like, even with a Star Wars tattoo, I'm not that kind of fucking person, and I just like talking about Star Wars. I like experiencing Star Wars with other people, and so the fact that there are people that are talking about Star Wars and loving it like I do right now is, it's so awesome. It's so awesome to have this, and I'm happy. I'm just happy that it's there. I'm happy that we get to do this. I'm happy that, everyone gets to see Star Wars in a way that I do. So I give the season, I give the episode A+. I can't get enough of it. So I'm excited for season 2. I'm excited for what they're going to do with this new, like, combined universe in the same time space.
I'm curious about one thing, and specifically Betty.
Yeah.
Having watched The Mandalorian and enjoying it like you have, has it made you want to reattempt to watch the original movies in any way? Because
No.
you haven't seen all of them. I know you've only seen up to a certain point.
I have to say no.
Okay. I was just curious.
Is there a reason behind that, if you don't mind me asking?
I like The Mandalorian, but again, I feel like I've had enough experience with the beginning parts of the franchise that I just don't really have any desire to go back to it.
Okay. Fair enough.
And I even like again, I have a Star Wars tattoo. You guys know that.
Holy shit!
I was literally about to say, even someone with a Star Wars tattoo. I wouldn't ever want to pressure you into watching something you don't want to watch anyway. So, as much as I'd love you to watch it, wouldn't want you to do it if you're not wanting to. All right. Well, let's move on to the next thing, shall we? Guys, Mandalorian is fantastic and Star Wars is fun and whatnot. So the next thing we have on our docket is episode 1 of The Stand, the limited series on CBS All Access. It'll be a weekly episodic thing. It'll end in mid-February. But we're going to review it because well, I like Stephen King novel or stories. My Betty loves Stephen King books, so felt like it was a good combo. I don't know how Maya feels about Stephen King stuff, but
one of my favorite series of all time, book series of all time, is King's Dark Tower series. What the fuck?
That was amazing.
I've told you that before.
You think I'm going to remember that shit? I can't remember actors' names.
That's true. You can't remember anything.
I can remember
you're always looking at your goddamn phone or looking at Twitter. Or
the difference is whether I give a shit. That's the
so you don't give a shit about the things I care about. That's what it is.
That's what he said.
Yeah,
that's what I heard.
So yeah, they're going to do a limited series on the novel that, from what I understand, I've been doing a little bit of research, and this is King's biggest novel. And it wasn't at first when he released it in, I think it was 78.
Mm-hmm.
It was only 800 and some odd pages. And then he revised it, went back and like added shit to it and whatnot. And now it's like 13 pages longer than it. But that was 1990.
It's 1,152 pages in its amended form.
Yes.
The complete and uncut edition of The Stand.
But the Stand is also arguably one of King's most popular novels too. As I think it is only the other one that's sold more copies. I could be wrong about that, but that's what I believe I read. So it makes sense that they're doing another adaptation of it.
Yeah, because they did the miniseries in the 90s. I think it was 94, 96.
94.
Okay. And it was good. But of course, I think in this case, absolutely, in my opinion, the book is better. I've read it several times. I love it. And that I'm just a Stephen King fan, but I was glad to see they were bringing this to life as a full season, not as, trying to crush everything into a certain time limit.
Yeah. I think that books that are that long in the first place don't need to be made into like a movie or 3 episodes of a show.
Yeah, and it looks like they've got a really good character cast going on here.
Yeah, I wholeheartedly agree. Well, Betty, if you wouldn't mind, you want to give a synopsis to everyone listening if they have no idea what The Stand is and what episode 1 is essentially about.
Well, The Stand is a book about a very quick moving play that hits America and the rest of the world. And it's kind of the end of times, and there are two divided forces, and you have the good and the evil. And the good in this case is being played by Whoopi Goldberg, and the evil is one of the Skarsgårds. Can't remember which one.
Alexander
Skarsgård, and that's going to be awesome. He is playing the character Flag, and certain people are still left alive, and they're meeting up, and I think a lot of them have a choice to make at this point, or we'll see very soon which way they have to go. But I know it's really hard right now for some people to watch this during a pandemic. Both of us have had somebody who has expressed this. And I just want people listening to remember that, it's not really going to play a big part past this episode. This is the stage for the real story that we're walking into. The plague was just a way to get us there. And it has no bearing on what's going on today. It's not the same type of plague. And this was written 40 some years ago. So please remember that when you're watching this, and don't let it turn you off, because episode 2 is going to be a whole lot different.
Yeah, 100%. It was kind of interesting because it was my mom that was having trouble with it, and she was like, this is going to give me anxiety, and I said, you remember the other miniseries? You have the book. By the way, she's never read the book. She just owns it. Don't know why. But she clarified that with me yesterday. She was like, I own it. It's somewhere in the house, but I've never read it. And I was like, oh, okay. But my dad and I were just like, yeah, this isn't like the whole pandemic part isn't a permanent thing. It's just the linchpin that starts everything. And she was like, I understand that. It's still kind of, it's just a little rough right now. And I was like, I understand. Like, just kind of try to get through it. And she got through it just fine. At the end of it, she was just like, okay, it's whatever. But yeah, it's interesting. They also started making the show. They started filming the show, I think in 2018 is what I read.
I had it pulled up. Hold on. I know they finished production on it in March of this year.
Yeah. Well before, the point I was getting at is well before the pandemic. So this isn't some like ill-timed fucking thing. It's just, hey, we made an adaptation of something that mildly relates to our regular lives.
Yeah.
But I never read the book, and there's a reason behind that, but partial reason. But I also don't remember the miniseries very well. I was a bit young. I was 11 at the time, and I remember it being a big deal on TV and whatnot, but I definitely never watched it. But to be fair, I also wasn't interested in fucking X-Files when that was on TV regularly, so there's that too. But did either of you watch the miniseries?
Mm-hmm.
I did. I actually have it on DVD somewhere.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I've watched it a few times.
That's interesting.
It was good.
For 94, it was really good. By today's standards, it doesn't hold up.
I mean, most things in that regard don't hold up, but yeah, because I was sitting there thinking, like, I know the story because it's just, conversations and other people talking about stuff, but I had never, I just don't remember ever watching it. So I don't honestly think I did, but.
How old were you?
11.
Yeah, it probably wasn't up your alley at that point.
No, I can promise you that it wasn't.
It had Gary Sinise playing Stu Redman. Molly Ringwald was in it. Rob Lowe was in it.
Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say star-studded, but definitely a big cast. Star-studded at the time.
Yeah, Gary Sinise was a pretty big deal in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
Ed Harris was in it. Matt Frewer.
Wow. You know what's the weirdest role that I remember Matt Frewer in?
Matt
it's another
Frewer.
made-for-TV
Was
thing.
it that horrible X Generation X?
Yes. You know exactly what I was talking about.
I remember watching that. Oh.
The girl that had all the muscles and whatnot, I had a huge crush on.
Anyway.
Oh, it's funny. Oh, that's hilarious.
So The Stand in 94, I think it was 4 2-hour episodes.
Mhm.
This is going to be 10 1-hour episodes, so we're going to get a more thorough storytelling.
So I think that's another question I do have for both of you, since you've seen the Stand from the 90s. Was that show critiqued, or critiqued for not being accurate to the book at all, or was that like not a big thing at the time?
No, I think it was pretty accurate to the book.
Yeah, I mean, it still had to leave a lot of things out just because of the time, and of course, 1,200 pages almost versus 8 hours of TV time, and you got to factor in commercial time there. Yeah, there's a lot of things that were left out, but it was pretty on point. But there's always going to be that, well, the book's better than the series crowd.
For sure. I think more so that obviously not, in on the crowd at the time. I didn't really look it up. I just was curious, like, was it accepted, or like was how far off from the adaptation? Because I guess my thought process is, if the miniseries was 3 2-hour episodes and this is 10 episodes, that's 4 hours more that we're getting here versus
it was 4 2-hour episodes.
So that's only 2 hours more we're getting with this miniseries.
Well, you got to think these were edited for commercials, so the standard hour with commercials is 42 minutes, so 8 42-minute episodes versus these are going to be 10 one solid hour commercial-free episodes. So
how much more time are we getting with this miniseries?
It's going to break down 20, about 4 more hours roughly.
Interesting. Okay, so that's more so what I was getting at, because Betty, you've read the book and you've watched the miniseries. I guess on a percentage, how much did the original miniseries leave out?
I wouldn't say it really left out too much. I think that, well, there was a scene that I thought they would have left out, but they didn't. I
guess that is spoilery, huh?
Yeah. But I think overall it did well for the time period. I think it did well for the time period. But, again, they had to, just like we've had to do, they had to update things for the time, because it was written in 78. It was made into a mini series in 94.
Well, from what
it was definitely 94.
Right. What I also read recently was that in Stephen King's revisal of it in 1990, he put the new time frame in the 80s.
Originally the time frame was in 1980 when it was published in 78. When he revised it in 90, he actually updated the time frame and set it in 1990.
I thought it said the 80s, but all right.
That's what I'm looking at right here.
I got you. It's fine. I was also looking at a comprehensive list of all of King's adaptations yesterday, and it was like it left out Langoliers entirely. So whatever. But yeah. So that's why I'm asking, is like, how much do you think that this adaptation is being made because the other one, people didn't really like the other one, or just because?
No. I think it's being made because people did like the other one, and I think it's a good story. If you're going to pick a story to update and do again, that's a good one.
Yeah, and I think, with the whole age of streaming and with the gloves can come off approach of, networks.
You're going to see more Stephen King than you normally would.
Yeah, because we've seen things be adapted from his works before, and they've been very tame, and he's the master of horror.
He is not a tame man.
No, and his stories aren't either. And that's one of the first things I noticed, the number of times fuck was said in the show. I was surprised.
Yeah.
Thinking, oh, well, it is streaming only. This is a pay service. So yeah, of course, it's not going to be as restrained as primetime television. And then, of course, the visual effects on the corpses, maggots and just fucking all the nasty fluids that are oozing and this and that. We didn't get that in 94.
Yeah, and I was watching it and I was thinking, oh my God, am I being overly empathetic right now because I want to puke? And it's so gross. I could not even look. I was just like, Yeah. It was makeup artist should win an award because that was impressive.
Yeah, the scene towards the end of it where the guy was like clearly he was dying and he came in, he had that like big fucking bulbous chin, whatever the fuck do you want to call that, and
his Lucas neck.
His Lucas neck. He came in, he was like, so I want to tell you guys about my Star Wars theory. It's for kids. No, when James Marsden stabbed it, I was like, that's fucking disgusting.
Sometimes you got to do what you got to do, Yeah. I do feel, it has been a hot minute since I have read the book because there was a time in my life when I had no TV. I had no job. I was disabled and laying on the couch. So I read a lot. I don't have that luxury these days. So I do feel like some things have been left out. It's like we go from them leaving the town to all of a sudden they're living somewhere. She's already hooked up with dude and visibly pregnant and it's like, I don't remember this. Am I going crazy? Because I feel like there's a lot of shit that happened between then and then.
I think we're going to get time skips, time jumps. We're just going to move back and forth.
Yeah, it's like I was remembering the way it started out. I was like, wait a minute, this isn't what I remember the way it started out. What is going on here? I was like, okay, are they going to tie this in? And they did tie it in, but it felt a little weird. It felt a little off. I mean, I still have high hopes for it. Getting those glimpses of flag in the background, it makes me grin like a little kid. So I do still have high hopes for it, but I'm not sure about what direction they're taking with the filming.
Yeah, it's definitely different, and I think that at least this episode and possibly the next episode are going to feel a little disjointed because I think that they want to get to the good stuff, the meat and bones of what makes The Stand so popular. And that was another thing that I read that I thought was so fascinating about The Stand itself is that Stephen King basically was just like, I wanted to make my version of like a Lord of the Rings story, but contemporary USA. And I think the show wants to get to that point. It seems like that because they rushed a lot of info in just this first episode. A lot of info at you.
Well, again, having read the book, I agree. I can see the Lord of the Rings connection, actually. You just have to put it in a very different setting. But yeah, I can see the connection there. Everything in this episode was a very introductory episode as to what went down, but you don't see the nitty gritty of the reality of the plague. And I'm not sure how much that's going to play up later in any episodes. But, overall, it was a good episode. I am very curious about next week. But I hope they do better.
So you were a little disappointed in this, or?
A little disappointed because, again, it was so disconjointed that I was worried that somebody who'd never actually seen The Stand or read it might not make connections that, people who have read it would make. It's like, when the gas station and the dude at the army base, same dude, completely different scenes apart. It's like, I hope other people are making the same connection. This is that dude. And I don't know. I felt like it was too disjointed.
If they're not paying attention, that's on them. I don't think that hindered the actual quality of the episode.
I was going to say, I've never watched the original miniseries. I've never read the book. I only recognize the name Randall Flagg because I've seen it pop up when people talk about like this, the Stephen King-averse. But I didn't have any trouble.
Okay.
So no, I understood that was the same guy. At the second that scene happened, I just kind of like, oh shit, okay, so he's the one that starts the plague entirely. And
did you see the door?
Yeah, there was a foot there who's holding it open. Which
was that? Yeah, that's Flagg's foot.
So
that's walking dude.
That's contextually it made perfect sense. And I'm personally very excited to continue the show. Like, I'm not gonna lie, Betty, I wasn't gung-ho about it when you suggested it, but now I am.
Good, because it does get better. It gets a hell of a lot better. And I think it really, people, I hope, come away understanding that, people don't live in a black and white world. They live in a gray world of in-betweens. And this is very much shown because the population is so limited, and you have these characters and you see them struggle with their own humanity, and we're fighting the end of the world, the end of times, humanity living on. It's a very introspective story.
Yeah. My dad cracked me up because we were talking about it yesterday while door dashing, and he goes, like, as I said, what'd you think of it? And he just goes, I liked it. I'm not saying I didn't like it, but I just did that guy's acting just really bothered me. And I was like, that guy's acting, who are you talking about? Who he was talking about was the guy that he got beat up in the beginning with his bike, and then later he's killed. Howard. Okay. Couldn't remember his name.
Harold.
Shocking to anybody.
Harold.
Yeah. Harold Lauder is just the fucking worst.
Yeah. So my dad was like, I couldn't stand him. And I go, in what way? And he goes, his acting was terrible. And he thought about it. And he goes, well, maybe that's the point. Maybe he was meant to be annoying because he's going to be a bad guy. And I was like, exactly.
He's the Steve Urkel of The Stand. I'm very fascinated because we've discussed this before, that I'm not the world's biggest fan of Stephen King's writing. There's many reasons why I don't like it. A lot of that has to do with my ADD brain, but that's besides the point. But I love his stories. I love watching adaptations of his stories. I think they are so much fun, and I've watched a ton of them. Like, my dad and I were going through a list of all like the adaptations that have ever been made, and I was just like, almost all of these are fantastic. And again, I say almost all because not all of them are good. I really enjoy like what people can do with his work. And it was funny when I was reading this stuff, apparently the guys who made It and It Chapter 2 are going to be making more adaptations of Stephen King novels. Oh, that's going to be interesting. I hope they do good.
I'm totally down with that.
Okay, so you're familiar with the original miniseries, at least, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you think they're going to bring the Cullen brothers into this? Or do you think that that's something that you can't get away with these days and ages?
No, I think they'll be in it.
I'm very curious to see how they're going to take that, how it's going to go down.
I'd ask you what the hell that is, but I'm pretty certain that's a spoiler.
Well, I mean, I already know that Tom Cullen's going to be played by Brad William Henke.
Oh.
So.
Okay, cool.
All right, so after the podcast, you're all gonna have to tell me, like, because I know it's spoiler territory for the listeners, but
yeah,
no idea why it would be controversy.
But those in the know, you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I'm not a stickler on spoilers for myself, but I know that a lot of people are, so I respect that. But I'm very curious.
The rest of y'all, you just gonna have to learn. We ain't spoiling it for you.
Well, let's go ahead and give a grade to the first episode here. I do feel like we are going to continue watching and reviewing this show as the weeks go on. But yeah. Who wants to go first?
I will.
All right, go ahead.
I give it a B+, and that's basically because again, big fan. Seen the miniseries, read the book several times. It felt very disjointed in places, and I don't feel like they put the story together very well, or I should say as well as they could have. And again, it does worry me about people out there. I hope they're fucking paying attention, because you need to pay attention. Otherwise, you're going to miss some important shit, But I do have high hopes for this series, and I think it's only going to go up from here.
Awesome. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to give it an A. I really, really enjoyed it. I was enthralled and paid attention the whole time. Surprisingly to Maya, probably I stayed off my phone.
Hey, I'm surprised too.
When I'm usually watching something, I'm not on my phone. If I know that I have to pay attention, or I know that the show is going to have subtle things in there, I'm not looking away. And I knew that the show was going to from the first scene. It's a lot of the time, like, let's take Hillbilly, for example, which we'll review next. I wasn't looking at the screen 100% of the time because I knew I didn't have to, per se. But I know that this show was taken into a lot of care, essentially, or at least I thought it was. So that's why I was like eyeballs on screen the whole time. But yeah, it's interesting you say that, Betty, because I know that a lot of people don't pay super close attention. They don't do that. And I don't understand that. I genuinely don't. Like, there's been tons of stories in the past where people just didn't pay attention. And then they would sit there and go, I don't understand this. I don't understand that. And I'm like, you fucking played the whole game. You watched the whole series. How did you not pick up on that? So I get your concern. But I also think that fuck them if they can't pay attention. Straight up. Like, if you're watching something and you miss a thing, you need to own that you missed it because you weren't paying attention, or pay the fuck attention. Like, I genuinely dislike that wholeheartedly when people complain about a product that they watched and they're like, I missed the foot keeping that door open. How did I miss that? Well, you fucking missed it because you were looking at your phone. You fucking missed it because you weren't watching it's an hour of your life. What the fuck are you doing? So that's my little rant on that. But I'm very excited for the rest of the series. I thought this was a lot of fun to watch. I'm curious again, and I only know very little, so I know that this is going to probably, both of you are going to be like, I'm curious if the virus was man-made. I think it was man-made. I think that's what J.K. Simmons' character was talking about. But I also think he might have just been talking about how it wasn't man-made per se, but it was definitely like, here's the plan of action we're going to take if it hits the military, versus like it was given to the military and this is what we did. But
no, it was man-made. It was manufactured. They even said it.
Right.
They said it.
When? What? At what point?
See, I was under the assumption, here's the thing, we don't know if they made it, but we know they were utilizing it. They had their hands on it, and they had plans to turn it into a bioweapon.
That's what I understand.
Something went wrong.
Okay.
Who made that thing go wrong? The person who wants to see the world end.
Which I assume is Randall Flagg.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's I was under the assumption that it wasn't man-made, but it was definitely like I said, either utilized by the government in a way to end the world, or the world's governments, or something to that effect, and it just got out of control. But
they did plan to use it in bioterrorism, and most government labs like that, or any labs for that period, but ones that are usually government sponsored, they tend to work on viruses that they find in nature instead of trying to create new ones, because we really still don't have a handle on how a virus itself works, because they don't have DNA, they have RNA, but yet they're able to replicate and do most of the things that we DNA things do. So
yeah. But yeah, I'm super fucking enthralled. I'm excited for episode 2. I really hope that.
I'm glad.
Like I said 100 times, like I don't think Stephen King is a bad writer. I just find that his writing does not appease the fucking ADD brain that I have.
And see, I'm the kind of person, when I read a story, I get really entrenched in it. It's like I have the movie in my head.
Mm-hmm.
It's going on in my head. I am invested. I am there. But that's just who I am. And again, I spent so much time reading books growing up, it wasn't even fucking funny.
I cast people that I know in roles, picture the whole settings, everything. Yeah, I do the same thing.
I think you guys might misunderstand what I'm getting at when I talk about Stephen King's writing. It has nothing to do with like I'm also doing what you guys are talking about, like creating an image and a movie in my head. I think the problem is that when Stephen King goes into extreme detail about a thing, the movie stops. It just straight stops in my head. And I can't, like, I lose interest really fast. And I stop paying attention to what I'm reading because the movie isn't going. It's like imagine if you're watching a Jurassic Park, right? And suddenly the movie stops and a guy walks out and goes, "Let me explain how RNA works."
But they did that. They did that though in Jurassic Park with the little cartoon.
Okay, when you have a scene like that you're talking about, in my head, when he's going into great detail about something, I'm like a drone camera circling around the thing and creating it as he goes to the description that he's giving it to me.
Yeah,
I know it sounds stupid as hell.
No, like a painting that's being painted in fast motion. Like boom, over here in this mountain, with peaks, whatever.
Or more like a video game where you see something coming, into being,
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of what it's like for me, and
that's
but
so
again, Stephen King isn't, his writing is boring to a lot of people. Anne Rice is boring to a lot of people. They also don't, she does that descriptive thing that people don't like. So I totally get it, but she makes great stories.
Sure. No, that's all I'm getting at is like when Stephen King's adaptations come out, I think I usually really fucking enjoy them. Really do. I think that again, it's a me thing. I don't think Stephen King is a bad writer, but I go back to the description in the book Cell, like when he spends 2 whole pages talking about how hot the blood was on the knife. Why?
I have to tell you, Cell is not one of his better works. I was not that impressed with that one.
No, you don't start with something like that. Start with something like fucking The Gunslinger.
Here's the thing. I thought that maybe it was just Cell until other people were like, "Oh no, that's just kind of how he writes." Like, yeah, it's not his best work, but it's definitely in regards to that he's a very descriptive writer. He made sure to paint a really detailed picture. And I think that and I've read other books, I've read other authors that do the same thing, and it's definitely a me thing. It's not Stephen King, it's not, whoever else.
Complained about it before.
Yeah, like I tried to, what other book was it that I tried to read that the author did the same thing? There was another book, I'm drawing a blank, but
Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
I've never read that because I know that that's what it is. I know that he spends copious amounts on shit that does it's just world building. And people love that stuff. And I don't think there's anything wrong with it. Again, I can't say this enough. It's absolutely 100% a me thing. I know that.
So what you're saying, Greg, is that you're flawed, and we're just going to have to accept that.
Yes, that's pretty much it.
I think you should try again.
Nope, not happening.
But overall, you're happy with it, Maya?
I'll give it an A. I'm excited to see, how this plays out on screen, this interpretation. I like seeing new takes on old stories. I like how this has been updated to be, current times, not set in 1990, obviously. Harold Lauder is a fucking creep. Absolutely. And the guy that got playing him is pulling off that creep factor very well.
Mm-hmm.
He is really nailing it. But I'm also a big fan of James Marsden and always have been.
Mm.
So I like seeing him as Stu Redman.
Not a fan of Amber Heard, but we'll gloss over that.
Yeah, I'm not either. But but yeah, I'm excited. I'm looking forward to see how it unfolds. I don't feel that it's disjointed. It's just a different way of storytelling in this overall story. I'm curious to see how they're going to piece it together. But yeah, really looking forward to tomorrow's episode.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I think that this discussion is going to be interesting as we go throughout the weeks because the three of us have a slightly different, like the way we're looking at it. I know borderline nothing. So, and then Betty, everything. And I think you're like right in the middle of that.
Well, I've never read the book.
Yeah. To
be honest.
I'm I'm pointing out that I'm excited about future episodes of the podcast when we talk about this. So,
yeah.
But
it's one of his most popular books that I've not read, which is odd. I should have, but I never picked it up.
I usually get at least one Stephen King book a year for a gift. So,
yeah, I think if you have CBS All Access or you want to get it, I know that's only $6 a month with commercials if that's what you want, $10 regularly. And like I said, we're gonna keep watching it till the end. So if you want to join us for that, you're more than welcome. All right, let's go to the last review of the day. I'm gonna hand it over to Maya on this one because this was something that she suggested very strongly that we watch. So,
well, recently on Netflix, a movie popped up. And people were talking about it. And a lot of people in this area were talking about it with extreme dislike. It's called Hillbilly Elegy. And the main thing they really didn't like about it is because it's more displeasure with the author than the movie itself, the author of the book that it's based upon, because the author claims to be Appalachian born and bred, even though he only spent a few weeks of his summers as he was a small child in northeastern Kentucky, but resided in Ohio. It's a rags to riches story, and it doesn't accurately portray what it's like to be an Appalachian. And
it's a big douche story.
Yeah, exactly. And I saw an article that's like, if you really want to learn and see the ends, what these people are like, then watch Hillbilly. It's a documentary that was filmed in 2016, came out in 2018. It's on Hulu, and it was basically, it's a film that examines the iconic hillbilly image in media and culture. It explores more than 100 years worth of media representation of mountain and rural people and offers an urgent exploration of how we see and think about rural America and the stereotypes therein. And the girl that that wrote this and directed it, Sally Rubin and Ashley York. They're the directors and writers. Ashley, I think, is the main one on camera, right? She grew up like an hour from where I live. Most of this was filmed within just a few minutes of where I live. This is out my back door, front door. I only have one door. I've got a patio door and a front door, but still, this is over the hill, like literally, because I live in southwestern Virginia, but I am, just literal as the crow flies, less than 5 miles from the Kentucky border. And I watched this and I was like, oh man, I want to talk about this on the show. So I suggested it to Gregg one night when we were playing Fall Guys. And mainly because when we play Fall Guys, one of the guys that we play with, Keith, he's always making fun and poking fun at my accent. I was like, I know I have an accent, but my accent is not nearly as pronounced as most people's around here. I was like, but if you want to get a good understanding and get past that stereotype, this is a good documentary to do so with.
Having been friends with you for so long and Betty for a briefer moment of time, there's a lot that I've learned when it comes to Appalachian culture, primarily the pronunciation of Appalachia.
Goddamn right.
And what's funny is that, like, when you watch this documentary, there's even a pronunciation of it that's incorrect. Like, you can hear it in, like, Dan tells his name, Dan, the newscaster,
Dan Rather.
Dan Rather, thank you. You can hear how he says Appalachia, and it's incorrect. And so I think that's why I've always mispronounced it. But you both watched this, and you were just like, yep, that's my home. I watched it, and I don't know how to say this correctly, but there was a lot that I learned. There was quite a bit that I learned. But I don't think it was learned in the way that others might learn in this show. And I think a lot of that has to do with my exposure to you two.
Well, what did you walk away from it with? What did you learn?
Empathy for people in that area, empathy for reasons of why things happened. Primarily the reason that a lot of Appalachia voted for Trump, and her showing the actual footage of Hillary saying, like, we're going to take away the coal industry.
Which was a horrible move on her part.
Oh yeah. Didn't even notice. Like, that's the thing I'm getting at is in my mind, I went, great, let's do that because, we need to go on renewable energy, right? As a Californian city boy, didn't even faze me when she said it back in 2016. And now I get it, though. It wasn't because of his policies or anything like that. It was because he literally backed the coal industry. And as she said in the beginning of the movie, there's only 2 jobs in Appalachia, the coal industry or Walmart. And what made that drive home harder was that poor guy who was in Deliverance.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And, he was in Betty's hometown where she lives on that campaign. That footage of him there in front of the coal miners and putting on the mining helmet and everything, that took place in her town. That's just over an hour away from me in the opposite direction. That happened. And when he did that, everybody around here is just like, that's my guy. Because they truly believed that he was going to turn it around. And it's not turned around. It's been on the decline for years. But it was worse in the 80s. And then it got better in the 90s and up until a few years ago. But it's on the decline again. But yeah, man, that's always been a big thing here. The coal industry. Like, I live, near several coal camps, and coal camps when they were erected back in the 20s and 30s and 40s, every house was built like not even 6 feet apart, all built the exact same layouts, all looked identical. And there are coal camps like that around here still standing. People still live in them. It's crazy.
Jesus. That was, I knew that coal was a big industry in Appalachia. I knew that because of just contextual shit that I've learned over my life. But what I didn't realize was how important it was to just the day in day out for people in the state, like or the state, but the region.
Yeah. Well, see, the thing is, in the 90s with the Clinton administration, we knew at that point that coal was on the decline, and we had the plan of basically better educating the people of this area so they could take over in technological jobs for new energy instead of ending up in a coal mine like their fathers and their uncles and their brothers. When 2001 happened, that all went out the shitter. Mm-hmm. And education in the area did not improve under zero tolerance. It got worse. And these people who are graduating today, they have nowhere to go. They have nothing to do. And they think that coal will save them, but it's a finite resource. They have not provided any effort to sustain these people if it goes under. And it's not a matter of if, it's when.
Yeah. Like my brother-in-law, he works in a mine. He's a roof bolter. That's the guy that, like, when the mining machine comes in and bores out the earth and takes the coal out, he goes in behind and he has to drive 3 feet long bolts up into the roof to hold it in place to keep it from caving in on them as they continually mine. So it's like one of the most dangerous jobs in the world. He's doing that because, it's either that or fast food. He wasn't able to go to college. He worked fast food in high school. He and my sister got married after she graduated. She's put herself through nursing school and she's a nurse now. That's basically, to most people around here, they've made it. They've made it because they own their own place. They own their own vehicles. She's a nurse and he's a coal miner.
And his life expectancy is 53.
Yeah. And I think he's 30 right now. And he's already got lung issues out the ass.
Oh, yeah.
And like in his mind, there are guys that have tested positive and have not told anybody because they don't want to get shut down because that's how much they depend on the job.
Because they make a lot of money because the people who run it, they know it's a short-term investment. They don't set their families up for when they die. They don't care. They want the money. It's, again, if they cared about what is going to happen in the future, we wouldn't be going through this right now. But for them, it's they take and take and take like they're going to take it to the grave. And it doesn't go with you when you die, man. It doesn't, they don't care about these people. And I think it's been made more than clear. And when Hillary said what she said, she doomed herself.
Yeah.
For this area. Because it's so important to these people. They know their life expectancy is shit. What they hope is they leave enough behind that their family can live well, or at least not in, destitution.
Yeah, it's like I said, that was my takeaway was empathy. It's so weird, being from California and in the city and having context like this be put on something that didn't previously have context. I'm not gonna lie, like backwoods yokels was the only, thought process I had for Trump supporters in the South. As I expressed to both of you, I've never been the type of person to immediately hear an accent and think the person's stupid. As a matter of fact, I had an argument with a friend a long time ago in a funny way that basically we were talking about accents and being attractive. I was working at Walmart at the time, and a woman who was Russian had come in with red hair, and my brain just went, I love you. And we had a long conversation.
Did you ask her to say moose and squirrel? Moose and squirrel.
No, because all my brain was doing was like red hair accent. Yes, please.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing that the conversation spawned into, like, to me, an accent is attractive, period. He was sitting there saying that the only accent that is not attractive to him is a Southern accent. And I was just like, that doesn't make any sense to me. Like, a Southern accent can be totally attractive. Like, think about from the perspective of like, like a Southern Belle or something like that. And he was just like, no, it's still like, they still sound really stupid. They still sound dumb. And I was just, that was such a weird like thought process to me. But this documentary put that into context,
and it shows how very common that thought process is.
Yeah, absolutely. So it was.
But at the same time, because this was filmed during the Trump election, the first time, 2016, it also showed that many of these people have come to depend upon these stereotypes, and they wear them as a badge.
Yeah. And there's truth in advertising. I mean, there are quite a few that are accurate to the stereotype, and not because they're dependent upon it. They just exist that way.
Yeah, that's been their whole life, and they won't go outside of it. There's always a truth to the stereotype, and while most people who live in the South, I would say, are not stupid, there is a form of inclusiveness in Appalachia that is extremely unique. And to travel outside that area is not as likely as it probably would be for other parts of the United States, because it is very inclusive. And because of the socioeconomic status here, people often get married young and have babies young and have families young. And before, they hit 25, they've already got 2 to 3 kids. They're married, working in, separate fast food restaurants, trying to make ends meet, and there's no way out. They take their family to the fucking RAM clinic, which is remote area clinic, which was started for depraved countries around the world, the ones that have, no access to health care. We have that here in Appalachia, and that's wrong. This is America.
Every summer.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I had some serious dental issues. I had dental insurance that was worthless, that I was paying $100 a month for, and was essentially worthless. It wouldn't even cover but $18 of my x-ray. That's all it covered. And I had massive dental work that I needed done. I had to go to a RAM clinic to have my dental work done for free.
And they do dental, they do eye, vision. What else? They check for breast cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Just very basic services. And it's like, how the hell is this going on in America? How the hell? Nobody seems to notice us or care about us.
And it's a 3-day thing. It goes from Friday morning to Sunday afternoon.
And people will camp out for this shit to be first in line.
They camp out. They start showing up Wednesday, Thursday night, and get in line and line up, and will stand in line 18 hours to be seen. It's sad.
That's the thing with this documentary that kind of threw me for a loop. Was it wasn't just about like the offbeat culture, because everyone kind of makes fun of it. It was like, oh, but if you keep making fun of this place in the media for so long, and then expect the people to not like kind of go like, oh yeah, this is just who we are, let's embrace it. and then have it have a negative effect. Like you're not paying attention. And I'll admit I wasn't paying attention. Didn't realize it was a thing until this movie was like, oh yeah, it's a thing. And I'm like, it makes fucking perfect sense. Psychologically speaking, this is how it works. This is what it is when you tell a group of people that they don't mean anything. They ostracize they don't only feel ostracized, but they start to ostracize themselves. And
well, and that, to be honest, part of it is they were already ostracized to begin with. They were so inclusive. The Appalachians, they were really nothing to the rest of America. They really never have been outside the freaking Smoky Mountains, and people don't understand this is a pocket of America where life is different. I'm not saying it's bad, but it's different, what the people go through. They're not living up to anybody else's stereotypes. They are who they are. No, they don't have to affect it. They are who they are. This was there before the stereotype, and they don't give a hoot, and nor should they. What bothers me is you could have plenty of Southern children who are well educated if it were not for shit like No Child Left Behind, which punishes schools that need the most fucking help, which is a lot of Appalachia.
Mm-hmm.
I always say
the technology that we were promised that we were going to give our kids, it never fucking came. Never came.
I always argue that education is tantamount to improving the country's standards. But if the education isn't happening because our government is putting in things like No Child Left Behind, that's actually leaving children behind. Like it's leaving
the most impoverished behind, the ones who need the help the most behind.
Yeah.
And, the other side wants to create charters to help these poor kids go to better Christian schools. And it's like, no, that should not be happening. We need to focus on making public schools better, not shipping off kids to fucking private religious institutions with a fucking voucher the government pays for, when that could go to serve the students in the fucking school.
Yeah. It's upsetting. Really
I get angry. I'm sorry.
You're right. No, it's totally like, I wish there was a way that I had kind of learned this prior to this documentary. I feel like it's always this really negative thing when I say that weirdly. It's always this thing where people don't really put into play or concept about like what problems there are. I think it's really easy, especially for someone like me, to ignore Appalachia because I'm not affected by it necessarily. Especially California. I'm as far in America, other than Alaska and Hawaii, you can get from Appalachia.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy that documentaries like this exist, especially for people like me. I'm really happy that, I've made friends like you two, so that way I'm more exposed and I can see problems in a way that I wouldn't have been able to prior. So and that's, again, like you said, Betty, like, what was your takeaway? I'm just like, empathy, a lot of fucking empathy. Like her family all voting for Trump, and again, not because of policies or anything like that, but or lack of education, but just straight up because they were worried about their jobs. They were worried about making money.
And you even heard her uncle. He was like, I was a lifelong Democrat. And then she said, I'm taking away coal.
Yeah.
And he said, I'm bringing it back. He said, that's all I needed to hear.
Yep.
That was a huge misstep on her part through 3 states?
Yeah.
I mean, that just lost her so many votes. And, she should have never said anything like that. I know what she meant, but that's not what she said,
Right. Yeah, exactly. And it's disheartening to see not only how Appalachia has to survive, they have to survive like this because, like both of you said, the rest of the fucking country doesn't give a shit about you.
Dude, I mean, there's a thing. A lot of people around here will talk about, like, once you get to, like, Roanoke, which is about 3 hours from here, you know, from there, east and north, that part of the state is well taken care of. This part of the state is just, like,
Abysmal.
It's abysmal. There's hardly any representation, and what representation we do have for here doesn't put it back into us, you know, like we feel is owed to us. You know what I'm saying? And it's unfortunate. So it's a big thing when a call center comes here. Oh, it's going to create 200 jobs, a call center. And people will come out of the woodwork applying for this because it's better than minimum wage. Because, you know, minimum wage is still, what, $7.25 an hour?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what most everything pays around here. Misty is fortunate because she works from home and she makes double that. So she's lucky. We're not living, you know, like kings or anything, but we live comfortably within our means. But it's almost impossible.
Is too, those call centers are just as likely to close up without a moment's notice, and just
exactly they
people are out of a job.
They come in because they're promised tax breaks and they don't have to pay any taxes. And then as soon as their deal's up for the 4 or 5 years where they get the tax breaks, they close shop and go set up at another place because they got the same deal worked out and they don't have to pay anything to the county. And it's good for the county because, oh, well, all these people are making money and they're putting their money back in locally. Well, as long as they're not doing it to Walmart, yeah. But that's the problem. It's a perpetual, never-ending cycle of we're fucked.
I feel like we're going to get to the point where we have just as many Walmarts as we have churches in the area.
I mean, yeah, really. We had a lot of churches.
Yeah, there's a saying, you can't swing a cat by its tail without hitting a church.
Well, I live next to one, so...
Yeah, I've got one.
For me, it's literally true.
I've got one right outside my neighborhood, and then about 2 miles down the road is a little white and like old chapel, and then at the very end of the road is a huge warehouse-looking building that is like a creepy ass Christian church. They do weird shit I don't even want to talk about, but yeah. So that's just. It's a lot, man. It's a lot. And every time you walk out your house and you walk in, like, say, through your neighborhood, somebody's going to ask you where you go to church and invite you to theirs. And it's like, I don't want to go. Why are you doing this? Why are you pushing this on me? I never even mentioned religion. And here I am trying to deflect you, asking me to church.
Yep. And if they take it personal too, if you say you don't have a church and you decline to go to theirs, they get mad.
That's how we became devil worshippers. You know, one of our neighbors across the street thinks that we're freaking devil worshippers because we don't go to church. I'm like, okay.
I'll never understand that. I know that there are some people here in California that are the same way. Obviously, not nearly as many, but
it's usually rural areas, though.
Yeah. If you told people in this area that they were superstitious, they would smack you for blasphemy. But the truth is, they are very, very superstitious people. You know, I mean, to treat somebody like that simply because they don't attend a church service, why? You know, you think they're the devil because of that? That makes no sense, you know? I mean, I remember as a young woman having flyers sent to my house from a church telling women that they should not divorce their husbands, even if they beat them, because it's their duty to make their husband a better person.
Ugh.
Yeah.
Disgusting.
I'm going to do something a little unorthodox for the podcast. We're not going to give this documentary a grade. What I am going to say, however, is if you don't live in Appalachia, watch this documentary. Sure.
Yeah.
It's a bit eye-opening to the region, to the area. It covers quite a bit. I kind of wish it was longer. There was a lot more that I'd love to learn. Like, she made a very enthralling documentary, and she does something that I think is clever for documentaries, and that's just letting things kind of naturally happen in conversation and showing it.
Mm-hmm.
She did a very good job at, like, she was in that house with a bunch of people who were like, yeah, I voted for Trump and I really wanted him to win. And
did they treat her bad?
No, of course not.
Did they, rib her a little bit? Yeah, they did. That's what families do in the South, or I would assume anywhere else, but I think overall, it does tell you that there's a lot of difference of opinion in this area, but at the end of the day, most of us still love our family, even if we think they're stupid in politics.
Yeah, and I think that's, again, like, and coming from my perspective, because, again, like I said, I'm the furthest you can get away without crossing another country or the ocean that you can get from Appalachia in this country. It is extremely easy for someone like me, or another Californian for that matter, to totally ignore that part of the country, to totally ignore the problems. And I don't ever want to be a mean person. I don't ever want to be rude. I want to assume that society and that humanity is good for the most part, and that when people choose to vote for somebody, or they make a choice with their life, there are underlying reasons. But it's so easy to ignore the downtrodden when you're not part of that downtrodden. And the worst part about it to me, the part that makes me feel, I guess, the most guilty, is I'm not that far off from y'all. I'm really not. I've been stuck in this town that I've lived in my entire life. I have very limited job options because of my education, and in regards to not having college education, all that jazz. Granted, it's not the same scenario, obviously, but being trapped because of circumstances is not something that is totally just foreign to Appalachian people. It is.
I don't know. There's a birth lottery for a reason.
But our society forces this level of classism that if you aren't from the Deep South, if you're not from backwoods people, you're a better class of person, even though you're probably making the same fucking amount and are just as trapped.
Well, that classism exists here as well, because you do have, like, as shown throughout the country, you have the very, very rich and the very, very poor, and very few in between. It is the same here. You have the very, very rich. Here in Abingdon, we have a golf course that, to be a member of, it costs $100,000 a year.
I used to live right next to that golf course too.
Yeah. My sister worked there for years. She got some great training in how to be a waitress and shit. But she met a lot of famous people that way too. Presidents, football players, senators, stuff like that. $100,000 a year. Now here I am living in a subdivision in a 3-bedroom, 1-bath house that cost me $80,000 when we first bought it, and here these motherfuckers are making payments for the rights to sit on a fucking country club for $100,000 a year. That's insane. The disparity is so obvious. It's crazy, because you definitely do have a divide here between the haves and the have-nots. We have segregated ourselves in classist ways. We have segregated ourselves in racist ways. Most of the people of color in this area, they don't live in Abingdon. They live in an area between Meadowview and Glade Springs. And it's been that way for a long, long time. Yeah. And we're just as subject to it as y'all are. It's like, oh, well, I may be, Appalachian, but I'm not poor Appalachian. Oh, I may be Appalachian, but I'm not white trash Appalachian. oh, I may be Appalachian. Well, I'm not meth head Appalachian, and the list can go on.
See, I'm poor white trash Appalachian, but not meth head.
So there you go. There's your sign.
Yeah, it was definitely, it was very much eye opening, and I think that's why I'm not going to give it a grade. I don't think we should give it a grade. It's a very good documentary, and you should see it. Period. Not like, oh, we want you to see it. You should see it. These are other human beings that are struggling. These are other human beings that are not that far off from yourself. And we have to stop playing classism when it comes to this stuff. And instead of sitting there looking at the Appalachian people, and I'm talking directly to people who don't live in Appalachia right now. If you listen to this podcast and you aren't in the region that Maya and Betty are in, and you live in, another Western state, listen to me. Watch this documentary. Take away quite a bit from it. Learn what you can. It is, like I said, it gave me a level of empathy I didn't quite know I had before. And I think it's important that more and more people kind of understand what is being expressed in this documentary. I have a thing about documentaries, my personal self, where I feel like a lot of documentaries intentionally mislead based on their agenda. This isn't one of those. The agenda here, if you want one, is to have further empathy for your fellow human, even if they don't live in the same area you live in. And I think that's very important, especially now in this day and age. So,
I mean, yeah, and that's the thing. A good portion of Appalachians, they're not bad people, even if you think they're backwards or they sound funny. The only thing that we're dealing with is the lack of education that we were promised by the government and they never gave to us. And it keeps us down. What are you supposed to do when you don't have the money for college or you don't have the grades for college? You end up working at a fast food job and maybe if you're lucky, a factory job or a, telephone job will open up somewhere and maybe you'll have it good for 5 years, but you don't know when that company's going to close. I mean, most of Appalachia is very hard and down on its luck. It's not well educated, and the country should really look at it and think, this is something we need to focus on. Once we get out of COVID, we need to focus on helping the infrastructure of the Appalachian people because we truly, truly need it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
Well, I think on that note, let's go ahead and wrap up the podcast. This isn't, again, I can't stress this enough. We're not giving it a grade. Just go watch it. It's on Hulu. It's called Hillbilly. It's an hour and a half of your life that you deserve to watch.
And it's absolutely worth watching.
100%. 100%. All right, then. I knew that was going to be a heavy conversation because there's a lot to discuss in that. But yeah, so for next week, everybody, it's going to be another heavy review episode because there's a lot apparently coming out at one time. What's that, Maya? Oh, we're going to be doing episode 2 of The Stand. Again, that's on CBS All Access. And we're going to review 2 films, Wonder Woman 1984 on HBO Max and Soul from Pixar on Disney+. I'm very excited for both those movies. So should be good. Make sure you follow us on all the socials listed below, including our new Twitch channel, which is twitch.tv/all_queued_up. That's where you'll find us playing Jackbox when we do that. You also follow us on the socials to get all that stuff. We have a lot of new merch in the Redbubble store.
Nope. Teespring.
Teespring, my bad. Yeah. What was the guy's name that did the art?
William Fong.
I knew I had it right in my head, and I should have just said it. Yeah, great art from him. You can have that on a shirt, a mug, I believe a beanie, a hoodie. I don't know.
Hoodie,
a lot of stuff. But also the new logo we have, not just the art, the new logo. Did you put that together, Maya?
Well, I cobbled up a mock-up and then sent it to a friend, and she gave me the nice revised version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's awesome.
She made it better.
Yeah, she took what I wanted, the idea that I had, and ran with it, and made it look all nice and shiny. Amber Maka, she has a business, Maka Designs, on Instagram, MAJKA Designs. It's not Majka Maka.
Yeah, I want that. I want that design on a mug. So
yeah.
When I have money.
Well, there's mugs that have both the logo on one side and the art of the three of us on the other.
So we need to make a Peace, Love, and Polypops t-shirt.
I'll be on that this week.
Well, on that note, everybody, Maya, where can people find you online?
You can find me on Facebook under my name. It's a public profile. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram through there. They're linked on my profile. As for other shows you can hear me, aside from this one, you can catch me on the Realm of Collectors YouTube channel every other Wednesday night at 9:30 p.m. Eastern on a show called Figure Bangin'. And then every Friday night at 9 p.m. on the Nerd Life Syndicate. And that's where you can find me. What about you, Betty?
You can find me on Twitter at Bright Betty. And you can find me on Facebook under Betty Badger Ogletree. And I'm usually on there posting my opinions about shit people probably don't care about. So, what about you, Gregg?
You can find me at Chubruck Geek on all socials. It's apparently had a burp right then and there, so that was fun. I think that's it for the most part. I know that I lost it. There was something I wanted to say and it's gone, but it doesn't matter. So Chubruck Geek on all socials. There you go.
Yeah, and you can find videos on YouTube.
Yeah, that's we have all past episodes uploading. Is it daily? Every other day? It's often.
Well, the YouTube there was a problem with episodes publishing automatically, and they've resolved that now. So when we publish new episodes, they are automatically uploaded to YouTube as well. But I have been going back and downloading and uploading a few here and there as time permits to the YouTube channel to have all of our catalog there eventually. That's my goal. But every Friday now there is, for those people who prefer to listen on YouTube over iTunes or Apple, or not Apple, but Amazon Music, what have you, you do have that option.
Awesome. Yeah, the other thing I wanted to do eventually for the YouTube channel is like little individual reviews for each of us to kind of like just use our phones or our webcams, no editing or anything, just like, hey, everybody, so I watched this new thing recently and yada yada yada. So I think that'd be fun, but that'll happen when it happens. No rush on that one, just an idea. But yeah, everybody. Again, check out Stand Episode 2, Wonder Woman 1984 and Soul, and we'll see you next week.
All right, peace, love, and polypops, everybody. Merry Christmas.
Take care, everybody. Merry Christmas. Happy holidays.